In this section, we're going to animate the camera so that it spins around when we selected a character. This isn't really necessary, but it's a lot of fun, and identifies for certain that a character has been selected. We're going to start by moving the camera into a new position, the position we want it to be when we're first looking at our characters. Right now, our camera is where it's going to be when it finishes its animation. So let's change its position. So let's change its position to 0, 4, 6. And give it a rotation of 30 about the x-axis and 180 about the y-axis. We could specify just 180 as opposed to rotating negative 180 because they seem like the exact same thing. However, we have to take care that our camera turns the correct direction as it spins around the players once they've been selected. If the camera spins the wrong way, it won't look the way we want it to. We want to make sure it spins the direction we want while it turns around. Now that our camera is positioned, let's go ahead and create an animation for it. I'm going to go to the project window and select my animations folder. I'm doing this so that as I create an animation, it's put in this folder automatically. Next, I'm going to open the animation window. I'm going to do that by clicking Window, Animation. I prefer to dock the window down next to the console. Ensuring that I have my main camera selected in the hierarchy, I'm going to click Create. I'm going to be asked where I'd like to save this animation. Be aware that some versions of Unity 5.3 won't actually ask you where you want to save the animation, and will instead just create it in the folder you currently have open. That's why I started by selecting the animation folder in the project window. This version of Unity 5.3 and future versions of Unity 5.3 will ask me what I want to save this animation as and where I would like to save it. I'm going to go and save this in my animations folder, and I'm going to give it the name Camera Start Transition. I'm going to set the camera's current position and rotation as the first frame of this animation. Then, as the last frame of this animation, I'm going to set the position and rotation we used to have, the one we want for gameplay. I could start by creating a keyframe at the first frame and putting in all of the information that I want, but I'm actually going to let Unity's system handle this for me. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag this red line, often called a scrubber, to frame 60, or the 1 second mark, since our animation is 60 frames a second. Now that the red line is at the 1 second mark, I'm going to ensure that I'm in record mode, and I'm simply going to put my camera where I want it to be after 1 second. This will not only record the final position of my camera, but it will also make a keyframe of the first position of my camera. I can see that I'm currently in record mode because the record button in the animation window is currently selected. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the value of my camera's final position. That position is 0, 15, negative 22. I will see those values turn red in the inspector, and I will see my last keyframe filled with its final position, and the first keyframe filled with its starting position. Now let's go ahead and set up the rotation of our camera. We want it to start at negative 180 degrees about the y-axis and end at 0 degrees about the y-axis. To look at another way of doing this, I'm going to go and click Add Property in the animation window. I'm going to select Transform, and then I'm going to click the plus icon right next to the rotation property. I can see when I select my first keyframe that the rotation is currently set at 30, negative 180, 0. And if I click my last keyframe, it is also set to 30, negative 180, 0. To change the Y rotation value, I'm simply going to click where it says 180 and set it to also be 0. I can now click and drag this red line, or scrubber, and see the camera transition from start position to end position. There are a few more things we're going to need to add to this animation. Namely, we're going to have to turn some behaviors on and off. However, we can't really do that until we have all of our behaviors in place. Therefore, we're going to revisit this animation in a later section. For now, I'm going to make sure I'm no longer in record mode, and I'm going to press play to see my camera movement in action. Obviously, we have an issue where the camera continues to bounce. I'm going to turn that off before anyone gets motion sick. The reason the camera is doing that is because all animations by default are set to loop. So I'm going to go to my project view, and I'm going to look for my camera start transition animation. I'm going to be sure to uncheck loop time. Now when I press play, we see that the camera transitions from its starting position to its finished position. In the next section, we're going to set up our animator controller so that the camera only transitions once we've selected our player.